And I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, guys. And I know that you've been doing a lot of research on Yasuni and Ecuador. So we are kind of on the same boat. We're all doing research about this. And let me just quickly how I started. As you can gather from my accent, I'm not from here. I'm from Argentina, which is here. I'm actually from Buenos Aires. And when I came to the States, I'm a journalist. I'm a professor at Ithaca College too. And when I came to the States, I started thinking about where I was from, where I came from, etc. And I started writing about Latin America and the different places and why do we think that we, people like me that come from that part of the world, why do we need to, I don't know, feel that communality with a group of people who are from South America. Anybody here is familiar with Latin America, South America?
I lived there for a year.
Where?
Nicaragua.
In Uruguay? Nicaragua. Okay. Anybody else? So it's far away, right? Nicaragua is not as far as Buenos Aires, or not as far as Ecuador, but there's a number of unifying aspects of Latin America. The first one is that most of the countries there speak Spanish, right? So I thought, well, there's a number of things that we have, all the Latin Americans have in common. I started reading about authors like in the late 1800s, there was this very famous poet from Cuba who was also a politician. He lived in New York City, Jose Marti, and he proposed to create a highway that went all the way from Alaska to Ushuaia, which is like here. Yeah, so it would cross vertically the entire continent, like the entire two subcontinents, right? And they would call it the Pan American Highway, right? So I started getting interested in that. And the Pan American Highway exists now. Like originally he thought this is going to be a railroad, but then it changed, it became a highway, right? So I started thinking, well, there's something that unites all of the South American nations and all of the Latin American nations, which is that highway. So I thought, well, my first point of research then is going to be a place in this Pan American Highway, because I started writing a book, right, about it. So my first point of interest is going to be the center of that highway. And the center of that highway, the place where I guess it begins and it ends, if there's anything, it's like Ecuador, right? The sundial, which is the point where we stipulated that the southern hemisphere ends and the northern hemisphere begins, right? So it's right here in Ecuador. So I went there and I started getting interested in what was going on there. And as you know, there's a lot of problems with the oil in the Amazon basin. People wanted to drill there. And I realized that what I thought was Latin America was actually like an idea that appeared later on, right? That appeared when the Spaniards conquered the continent and they imposed the language on the locals, right? But underneath that highway and underneath that idea of Latin Americanness, there was something else. There's lots of cultures there that are not per se, they don't speak Spanish, for instance. Many of them speak only Quechua, which is the language of the Inca, and their native tongues that are even some of them are older than Spanish itself, right? So I went there. I went to the Amazon basin, following a friend, and it's curious, right? Because I was doing research about highways, but in the Amazon basin, the tribes there, you probably read about them: the Waorani, the Sapara, the Shiviar, the Shuar, the Achuar. I met a lot of those people, a lot of the leaders of those communities, they don't want highways, because the minute you put a highway into the Amazon basin, there's lots of people interested in the timber, so they go in with the trucks and they start cutting down the trees, and they scare away the animals, so they don't have anything to hunt, and they don't have anything to eat. Same thing happens with the oil. When you start drilling for oil, the animals around they're scared away. So I got interested in the. I see that you were talking here about the Yasuni YTT proposal. So Correa, who knows about that? The Yasuni YTT. What is it? Who wants to say what it is? Yeah?
The ITT?
What is it?
Well, it's a plot of land that has a lot of oil underneath it.
Yeah.
And
Why is it important?
because it's near a reserve, I think.
Yeah.
Native people's reserve.
Yeah.
And oil companies want to drill there to get all the money and the oil.
Yeah.
And then, like, conservation groups don't want that because they want the people to be. It's very biodiverse.
Yeah.
People don't want that to be
So
taken away.
You know, the YTT, the Yasuni is, there's 3 places, Ishpingo, Tambokochi, and the third one, does anybody remember what was it? There's 3, yeah. Tiputini, okay, thank you. So there's 3 places where explorers have found a lot of oil. Like a lot of crude underneath, right? They say it's about $3.6 billion in just in crude there, right? So, but the thing is that oil is standing on one of the most, if not the most biodiverse area in the world. Like in 1 square mile of the Yasuni Park, which is a preserved area, there's more trees and birds on 1 square mile, right? Think of like perhaps the size of where this school is.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So your school, imagine that here in this school there were more trees, insects, animals, birds, and all kinds of things that we don't even know, right? Than in the entire North America, right? The entire Mexico, the US and Canada combined, right? So all of these animals that are in this area, in an area the size of this school, if you start drilling for oil, they either disappear because of the contamination of the oil that you're extracting. The rivers, there's only 2 rivers there. So, and the places where the oil is extracted from is just and the confluence of those 2 rivers. So the minute there's a spillage, every animal loses their source of water. And on top of that, there's lots of native, what do you call them, Native Americans? Yes, they are Native Americans, right? So lots of Native American people there too, especially the Waorani, which are kind of the Yasunis, their ancestral territory. But there's also the Taromenani and the Teraeri, which are 2 peoples who don't want to be contacted by the world, by the Western world. So they, whenever they see that we're coming in, they go away. They go deeper into the jungle, right? So that's one thing. So the park is a protected area, right? And it's very well explored because of this biodiversity. But there's also the basin of a river called Conambo, which is a little bit further south, which is, be careful with that, which is where I was. I was never in Yasuni, I was a little further south. Let me see if this works. Okay, so here's Ecuador, right? Here's the entire, this is a map of the entire area that is open for oil exploration, right? Correa opened it in 2008 for companies to bid and say, well, I want to explore here. I want to drill here. I was mostly here, and here, right? So Yasuni is around here, YTT. So all this area. So there's a bunch of things. Those are protected areas, right? According to the Ecuadorian government, there's everything that is on the ground there, because that's one of the caveats of their constitution. Everything that stands on the ground is protected. But what they don't consider is that, or what the constitution doesn't say is that, or what it says is that what is underground belongs to the state, right? So there's a debate there. What the locals think, what the Waurani and the Shivyar and the Achuar say, well, I mean, but if you take the oil, you're taking out the spirit of our land, and everything is going to die, which is kind of the way they rationalize and they interpret that. So they think that the minute you start taking the oil, everything on top of it will die, rightfully so. So this area is protected, right? And then there's all this, the rest of the southern part of the Amazon basin in Ecuador are ancestral territories, right? So if you look at, and I don't have it here, but for instance, there's different plots that belong to the different nationalities. Here, you have the Waurani, the Tagairi and Taromenane. Here, you have the Zapara, and here you have the Quichua from the Amazonia. Here you have the Achuar. Here you have the Shuar and the Shivyar. So all of those are lands that they're kind of I mean, not reservations. They don't have casinos there, and they have a really good and very strong political. They have the Native Americans of Ecuador have a very strong political association. So they prevented a lot of this land being to be pillaged by different companies and the government, etc. But since Correa opened the bids, there were only four of these plots of land that were of any interest to any companies. And 3 of them, I think it's 84, 31 and 16. This one's 31, 16 and 84 are going to be supposedly exploited by companies